Hello there. Today, The Human Comedy by Honoré de Balzac. Bit confusing. Honoré de Balzac wrote an enormous collection of literature which is not so loosely known as The Human Comedy. But this is a collection of short stories called The Human Comedy, in which all of the short stories are related to characters from other parts of the human comedy. Balzac's collected work is just so fantastically enormous. What can I say? It's beyond belief. And I have read very, very few. I've read Old Goriot, I read Eugène Grandet, I've read The Black Sheep, and I read Cousin Bet, and now I've read The Human Comedy. Some of the characters in these stories do appear in some of those other novels. It's incredible. I wonder how he kept it all up here. Honoré de Balzac, 1799 to 1850. One of the greatest and most influential of novelists, was born in Tours and educated at the Collège de Vendôme and the Sorbonne. He began his career with a historical novel, The Couchant. Balzac then conceived his great work, La Comédie Humaine, an ongoing series of novels in which he set out to offer a complete picture of contemporary society and manners. Always working under an extraordinary burden of debt, Balzac wrote some 85 novels in the course of his last 20 years. 85 novels, 20 years. Including such masterpieces as Père Goriot, Eugène Grandet, Lost Illusions, and Cousin Bet. In 1850, he married Evelyn Hanska, a rich Polish woman with whom he had long conducted an intimate correspondence. 3 months later, he died. Translated from the French by Linda Asher, Carol Cosman, Jordan Stump. It's very hard for me to know how to review a collection of short stories. I think the first thing I should say is that if you are a writer, you need to read Balzac. Balzac has the greatest grasp of his character's psychology. He understands so perfectly where the characters come from and why they behave in the way that they do. It completely blows me away. He paints these characters so vividly, and then he'll tell you something about them. Just that perfect thing which explains their actions and how they come to behave in the peculiar way that they're behaving in this story. Of course, if you break it down, most of the characters are motivated by the desire for money, and if it's not money, then it's matrimony. Money and matrimony. Is that the two things? Well, by and large, yes. And then, of course, there's love, which may or may not be related to matrimony. Oftentimes is not connected to matrimony. Matrimony is, in Balzac's stories, it's often a business arrangement. She's wealthy, I'm wealthy. Our wealth is relatively at the same level. If we get married, that's a great partnership. Of course, she's got a long nose and a narrow face, and her eyes are kind of small. But if we put our money together, that's going to be a good marriage. Of course, we'll have affairs because we are French. Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you fool? Nearly all of the stories in this book are fantastic, but in this collection, they get better as they go along. The two final stories in this collection are just masterpieces, incredibly brilliant works of literature. My favorite story was Gobseck, which is the second but last one. I was telling some friends that this short story is absolutely incredible. All of these stories are very old. I think that they are all free to read on this Gutenberg website that publishes old text. I think anything that's over 100 years old is available, and this is certainly over 100 years old. And so I sent them a link from Gutenberg. When I scrolled down to the bottom of the story, there was a character list and how these characters appeared in other of Balzac's novels. It was really so fantastic for me, especially because one of the novels that I've read of Balzac, this Père Goriot, I would say Balzac's most famous novel. That is the one you are most often going to find here and there in the used bookstores. I just remember loving it. Like, it was a fantastic story, very deep, very complex. And in this story, Gobseck, we have the daughter of old Goriot, which just remembering that story so vaguely, but with such fondness, trying to remember, like, oh, okay, and now this is the daughter. If you're a fan of Balzac, I won't say that this is a great place to get started. Not by any means. I think Old Goriot, Eugène Grandet, The Black Sheep, those are the ones that I've read. Highly recommend those, not so much Cousin Bette. But once you've become acquainted with the world of the human comedy, this is a great book to read. And the short stories are just fantastic. Gobseck is so incredibly wonderful. Not happy. I don't mean that it's a happy story. It's really quite maddening because we have a moneylender who is like a truly monstrous character, vicious. Nothing eclipses his love for money. Nothing at all. A character like that is surely unforgivable. But the last story in the book, which is called the Duchesse de Langeais. First of all, the most interesting thing about this story, perhaps, is the dedication. You know, if you write a story, you dedicate it to your friend, you dedicate it to one of your peers, you dedicate it to someone you have respect for or someone you have some connection with. So this story is dedicated to Franz Liszt. This is the story I want to tell you a little bit about. Most of the story is predominantly about these wealthy Parisian society people who, it seems like they spend their entire lives going to these balls. As a part of this society, everybody is flirting. Of course, they take lovers, and that's all a big part of the game. It doesn't matter if they're married, it's just, that's a part of this Parisian life. The women are attracted to these younger, handsomer, more muscular, more exotic men. The men, same thing, attracted to younger, more beautiful women than their wives. Everybody tries to keep it hush-hush. And marriage is very much about having a wealthy family and passing on the wealth to the next generation. Our lineage, our family will raise in society if we keep being lucky in this way. And hopefully one of these foolish children doesn't marry some poor person for love. God forbid. Into this Parisian society comes a soldier. Now this soldier has undergone some very heavy trials, almost insane bravery that he showed in his military career. Nobody can match him for bravery. He is absolutely rock solid when it comes to being a soldier and just no fear whatsoever. And because of some political situations, he was in prison for a while, and then he was restored to his former position because of the new government. And here comes this man into Parisian society, and he doesn't know anything about the games that people play in this society. One of the women, who's married, she has a look at this soldier, and she says, I'm going to make him one of my conquests. I will make this man fall in love with me. He will be my boy toy. And we will have our romance, and when he is so fully, completely in love with me, I will just cast him aside and say, of course, I'm married to another man. I can't be your lover. This is what seems to be considered a very fun and common game that these high society ladies play. That was all of the entertainment these women could get at this point. They had their family, the children were sent off to the governess, and now, well, what should she do? Her husband's always at work. Of course, he's playing with his mistress, so she takes a lover. The trouble is that this soldier doesn't know about these Parisian high society games. When this woman begins to show him some affection, not affection, just attention, he responds and very shortly falls in love with her. And when she begins to get cold with him because, you know, she's achieved her success. Oh, look, I made the soldier fall in love with me. Haha, another victory for me. He's not going to be rebuffed. He's not going to be sent away like a child. He is in love with his woman, and he doesn't care that she's married. I'm in love with you. You provoked me, and we are going to do something about it. Really quite amazing. And she sees that this was the wrong man to play with. Yeah, dire consequences. The amazing thing about Balzac is just how clearly he understands psychology and emotional development. It's like he was a student of life, and he could imbue his characters with this like almost beyond literature an understanding of what his characters were going to do and why they're going to do it because of how Balzac shapes the story of their personality. It's just so fantastic. I don't want to give you a dozen examples, but there was one that just struck me so perfectly. Balzac will teach you about human behavior. So in the story, A Passion in the Desert, I don't want to explain exactly what happens. It's quite good. It's a bit odd. A lot of the stories in this collection are, people are meeting at a dinner party and one of the guests begins telling the other guest one of the stories from their lives, and those stories comprise most of this collection. So one character asks, "But how did it end between two beings so well suited to understand each other?" There was a big breakup. This one character doesn't understand, well, how could they possibly have broken up? And here is the answer. Ah, that is it. They ended the way all grand passions end, through a misunderstanding. One or the other believes he has been betrayed. Pride prevents understanding. Stubbornness prompts a falling out. Like, that was absolutely the most perfect thing I've ever read. One or the other believes he's been betrayed. Maybe, maybe not. Pride prevents understanding when you have an argument with your partner and you just don't like what they're saying, so you refuse to believe them and you think that they're lying to you. And finally, stubbornness prompts a falling out. No, you don't want to hear any apologies. No, you refuse to accept their apology. No, that you're not telling me the truth. Just a few quick sentences. He wraps it all up. How many relationships have ended just so? In the story Gobseck, as I said, it's the story of a money lender, which are never going to be a very happy or trustworthy character in literature. And how is this for this character's backstory? His mother had sent him off at the age of 10 as a cabin boy to the Dutch East Indies, and he knocked about there for 20 years. Thus, the creases in his sallow brow harbored secrets of dreadful events. Sudden terrors, unexpected turns, romantic escapades, sublime joys. Hunger was born, love trampled underfoot, a fortune threatened, lost and regained, life 1,000 times in peril and saved, perhaps, by quick decisions whose urgency justified their ruthlessness. That's 2 sentences. It's 1 paragraph, just that. Telling the story of this little boy, 10 years old, sent away as a cabin boy. All right, son, we've got no money to feed you. You better go and become a sailor because you're going to starve if you stay here in Paris. Okay, bye, Mama. Where's the ship going? It's going to the Dutch East Indies. Where's that? Pray that it's warm, son. The only downside about this collection of short stories is that when he begins writing about love, which is a very typical subject for Balzac to get onto, it always gets very melodramatic. Like, the love is always the big love, and it's described to a fever pitch. Balzac was a writer who really got into this melodramatic, grand descriptions. And that's completely fine if you're reading a novel, because you're only going to get one of those about love, and you're going to get one about deprivation. But in this collection, you're going to get several of these love, and you're going to get several of these moments of feeling cheated. And by the time I got to the last story, I was a little bit tired of Balzac's literary descriptions of love. It's a problem with short story collections. How different is one short story going to be from another, from the same author? Like, I think any short story collection that you're likely to read is going to have similar or repeated elements because it's coming from the mind of the same person. Did I love it? Yes. Is it my favorite Balzac? Not by a long shot. However, as I read more and more of the human comedy, I feel that it brings a lot of pieces together. However, they're still quite dislocated. Like, I can see that, all right, this is a character from over here, that's a character from over there, but as a grander, enormous depiction of French society. All of the pieces are rather disparate. Like I can't remember one character from over here, one character from over there. I guess I'll just finish by saying it's excellent. However, I would rather read one of Balzac's other novels, and I've got plenty on my shelf. Père Goriot, A Harlot, High and Low. All right. Ursula Mirouet. So I've got plenty to read and looking forward to it. 19th century French literature. Just love it. Honestly. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. That's all for me. Please like and subscribe if you're not subscribed already.